So many of you will be aware that I'm a big fan of Mexican inspired food, and if you're not aware, I'm a fan of Mexican inspired food, and I've got a real craving for barbacoa tacos on fresh flour tortillas. And when doing a freezer dive a couple of days ago, I found this single beef cheek. This is from John Davidson's. It's 630 grams, and I thought I could make myself a little bit of barbacoa. So let's make it up. So thankfully, you don't really need to do too much to beef cheeks. In the UK, at least, they typically come pretty well trimmed, which is nice. And the good thing about beef cheeks is they've got a huge amount of collagen in them, makes them really sticky and delicious. They break down really well, providing you cook them right, and they are perfect for barbacoa. All I'm going to do is just take off some of this hard fat and possibly expose some silver skin. Anything that's maybe too tough and won't break down, I'll get rid of. Some pretty hefty silver skin under there. I'm gonna go through and just take this off, just using my sharp boning knife, keeping it nice and flat. Remove that silver skin, trying to leave on as much of that meat as possible. And there we have a beautifully trimmed up beef cheek. You can see where I kept my knife real nice and flat. It's not created any divots or anything like that. And there's a little bit of silver skin left on there, but I'm not too worried about that. That is ready to go. So in terms of seasoning, I'm gonna keep it really simple with salt and pepper as usual. And I like to go 2 parts pepper, 1, 2. And I like to use the Kirkland brand from Costco, coarse black pepper. 1 part Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Give that a mix round. And you can obviously use any rub that you want. This is just gonna form a base, as we will be braising the beef cheek later. And then we're simply just gonna dump our beef cheek in. Then we got our beef cheek ready to go on the smoker. So I obviously don't have a whole pit in the ground, and we're not cooking a whole animal. So this is arguably not barbacoa, but it should do. We're going to be cooking on the kettle today, and I've just got some charcoal in with a little bit of wood from a previous cook, and we're going to be cooking at around 250 Fahrenheit for a couple of hours until we get some good color, good smoke flavor, and then ultimately we're going to be bringing this inside to braise. And you might not be able to tell, but this piece of charcoal looking stuff at the back there is actually some unburnt down oak. And I've got another piece of oak just under here, which you probably think won't catch, but it will start to smolder at the very edge at some point during this cook. And I'm not looking to try and create kind of Texas bark beef cheeks here. Really just about getting some outdoor fire cooking flavors onto this cheek before we braise it. So I think enough charcoal has caught now. It's probably hot enough. Top vent over the top of the meat, open that up fully. Not really too sure what the temperature is. In 15 minutes or so, I'll probably come stick my thermopen in and make sure that it's running over 200 Fahrenheit. But really this is about building flavor. I'm not too worried about putting a digital thermometer in there. I need to drill a hole here and put a tell true in, but haven't done that yet. Not too worried about temps right now, more just about flavor. So we'll come back in a couple of hours. So we need to make up some nice soft tortillas, perfect to go with barbacoa. And I'm gonna be trying to create the HEB butter tortillas. If you've never had them, they're from HEB in Texas, they're great. And I've been searching the internet for a recipe for a while to try and create them. And I found one that's pretty close. I add a little bit more fat. I'm gonna show you how I make them. So into a mixing bowl, I'm gonna go in with 250 grams of bread flour, 15 grams of milk powder, 3 grams of baking powder. That's gonna give us hopefully a nice little puff. 6 grams of salt. And the thing that makes this more of a HEB style tortilla is butter flavored Crisco. So this is just vegetable shortening with butter flavor in it. If you're in the US, I'm sure you're very familiar with this. In the UK, you can buy it online. I'll drop a link below to where you can buy it. Works really well in these tortillas. And of course, you could use any kind of fat for this. You could use regular lard, oil, tallow, just regular butter. I'm just gonna go in and start to break it up and crumble this fat up and create a bit of a sandy texture. And once that's done, I'm gonna get it onto our mixer. You could definitely do this by hand. And we're gonna start to incorporate about half a cup to begin with of warm water. May need a little bit more. I'm starting off a little bit light. I'm just gonna try and bring this dough together. And after about 5 minutes of mixing and adding another half cup of water, this dough has come together. It's looking good. You can tell that it's nice and fatty. We're just gonna let this hang out in this bowl for maybe 20 minutes or so. And of course, you could just do this by hand, but I need this mixer out anyway for a different video, but I probably wouldn't waste the extra washing up when you can do it by hand. So 20 minutes later, dough ball out, and really simply, just start kneading it. Looking good. And we just need to portion this out into 45-gram dough balls. Somewhere around 45, 44.3, we'll take that. And obviously the full recipe will be in the description below, and I'll put it in percentages so you can double this recipe up if you want to make more. You could scale it up to the point where you are, you could make hundreds of tortillas from this recipe. And then we're just going to give these a roll on the table, pinch the bottom, and then you've got a perfect little round dough ball. And I'm going to let these rest for at least an hour before I roll them out and cook them. So we've been cooking at an average of around 250 Fahrenheit for about 3 hours. And that beef cheek is looking good. I've got all the color and probably smoke flavor that I'm wanting to get right now. So I'm going to take this inside and put this into a braise. So we have our single beef cheek. Seems a bit ridiculous, I'm cooking just one, but here we are. Going into a dish that is perfectly sized for this amount of meat. It's high-sided. I don't want to use anything too wide because when I pour the liquid over this, I want it to come up about 3/4 of the way up the beef cheek. And then I'm going to go in with some beef stock, about 4 cloves of garlic, a bay leaf, and then I have some guajillo chilies. I'm just gonna stab these just to kind of open them up. I'm just gonna nestle these in there down the sides. And remember, this has got plenty of salt and pepper on it, so we don't need to be adding anything seasoning wise. And then finally, just some cumin, because Mexico. Foil, gonna create a nice tight seal. And I'm really making an effort to create a tight seal with this foil, just like a pressure cooker. If I seal it, the pressure's gonna build up. It's gonna help to break down that beef cheek a bit quicker and just generally speed things up. So this can go back on to the smoker. It can go into your oven. In my case, I'm gonna put it into the oven because I don't wanna waste fuel. We'll come back in a couple of hours and this should be ready to pull apart into some nice barbacoa. So we'll get this into the oven at 350 Fahrenheit or 150 Celsius and keep cooking. So the beef cheek's in the oven, time to make some salsa. And we're gonna make a salsa verde or a green salsa. So to kick off our salsa verde, we are gonna grill off some vegetables. And this isn't an essential step, but I think it's gonna add some nice flavor to our salsa verde. And to do that, all I did was take the lid off the Weber that I've been using all morning and allowed some oxygen to get to those coals. And they're on the way up at the moment. And they should be nice and hot, ready to grill over. So we're gonna start off with some garlic cloves, some jalapenos. Now these are apparently jalapenos. Fresh jalapenos are kind of hard to get here in the UK sometimes, so I'm pretty sure that these are just regular green chilies. Cut them down, and half a medium white onion. Jalapenos, or our green chilies on, garlic, white onion. I'll take these outside to the grill. And we'll just start to grill these off. They don't take very long. Some nice color on there. If anything, it's just a case of cooking the rawness out of particularly the garlic and the onion. And we got some good color on these veggies, and this tray is still cool enough to pick up and take inside. So our vegetables are roasted off. You may have noticed I didn't roast off any tomatillos, any fresh tomatillos. However, they're really hard to get here in the UK, so I go with the canned tomatillos. You can pick these up pretty easily on places like Mex Grocer or Mex Trade, any of those places online if you're in the UK. They work well, I don't have a problem with them. I think they're fine. Open this can up and drain out all of that juice. We are gonna put them into our NutriBullet, all of our fresh vegetables. We'll go in with the juice of about, for now, half a lime. May need to adjust later. Big pinch of salt, big handful of coriander, oh, and some oil. Get emulsification action going on. Ooh, that's looking good. Yeah, delicious. That's probably the best green salsa I've ever made. Maybe a touch more lime juice, but the spiciness is there from the chilies. Texturally and color-wise, I really like that. This is gonna go perfect over the top of our barbacoa tacos. So I forgot to turn my mic on for this section, but we are gonna pre-cook some of these tortillas and we're gonna keep them in this tortilla warmer. So when it comes to tortilla warmers, some people just wrap their tortillas in a towel, or you can buy fabric tortilla warmers. Some people just put them straight into the plastic tortilla warmers. For me, I don't wrap them in a towel because sometimes the heat from the tortillas can bring out the smell of any fabric conditioner or any detergents that you've used to wash those towels. But just going straight into a plastic tortilla warmer, I find can create some condensation and that can make the tortillas soggy. So what I do is take some paper towel and I effectively line my plastic tortilla warmer with it. It has no fragrance, obviously, and it captures all that condensation that forms, keeping the tortillas nice and dry, but also allows a nice amount of steam to form and continue cooking them and keeping them soft and fluffy. So that's what I'm going to use today. We're just going to gently dust the surface with some flour and lightly coat the dough balls in it, seductively dust up the rolling pin, flatten the tortilla out a little bit, and then we're just going to start rolling back and forth And once we get a nice little oval shape, we're gonna flip it over and give it a quarter turn. I learned that trick from Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue, and it seems to work really well for me when trying to get nice round tortillas. And once this has been rolled out a little bit, we're gonna dust off any excess flour, remove any excess flour from the bench. We're going to try and roll this out as thin as possible, and we want to do that using as little flour as possible. I don't want these tortillas to be kind of dusty and dry on the outside, so I'm only using barely enough flour to stop the tortilla from sticking to the bench or to the rolling pin. Once we've got our tortilla almost see-through and ultra thin, put that into a medium to high heat pan. It should immediately start to bubble up, and then we're going to give it a few turns. It should start to puff up pretty quickly because of that baking powder, and once it's looking like a tortilla, we'll stick it into our warmer. Now, you can't tell me that doesn't look like a legit stack of flour tortillas. I can feel that they're about to tear, but they've got some nice spring, and you can roll it up. Nice. So these are just going to stay in there until we need them, and we'll do one last cook on them just before we eat them. 4 hours after going into the oven, I am pretty sure these are done. I checked them about 45 minutes ago and they were pretty much there. Ooh. So that liquid in there has reduced down a nice amount. The beef cheek itself is just, yeah, that is not complete mush, which is good. I don't want it to be completely textureless. I'm gonna be able to pick this up, but you can see that it just wants to fall apart. It's nice and sticky, I can see inside all that collagen. And when I checked on this sauce about 45 minutes ago, I gave it a taste, and it's so good. It's really salty. It's got a nice kick from those guajillo chilies, but the best thing about it is the amount of gelatin which has come out of that beef cheek and into this sauce, so it kind of clings to the lips. It's just a really nice full-bodied sauce. So we're gonna let this rest for about maybe 45 minutes, half an hour, until this comes down to an internal temperature of around 150 Fahrenheit. This beef cheek has cooled down nicely and it is ready to be made into barbacoa. Ooh. So just gonna break this up, and you can see just how juicy it is. All that gelatin is super moist. Yeah, that looks real good. And it doesn't necessarily need it, but I think adding some of that cooking liquid will really amp the flavors up on this even more. That is looking like some delicious barbacoa. Put that into a pile to keep it nice and warm. So we've got our flour tortillas nice and warmed up. Then we're gonna go on with some of our beef cheek. And I don't know why I'm making two of these, because it's just me eating it, and I definitely won't eat them both. So then we'll go on with some of our green salsa, white onion, which I love, on pretty much every taco. Because I've got it, I'm gonna go on with a little bit of cotija cheese. You could just use feta or not use anything at all, it's not essential. Coriander or cilantro, as you might call it. Then a couple of lime wedges. They are looking like some delicious barbacoa tacos. I am really happy with how these turned out. Little squeeze of lime. Give it a taste. That, honestly, is as good as any barbacoa I've had in the States. The freshly made tortillas just do it for me, and they are so good. The beef cheek, as always, tender, smoky, salty, peppery, gelatinous, perfect for this. The salsa as well, good zing to it, good kick to it, nice and fresh, cuts through all that richness. So I didn't think I'd finish the first one, but I'm definitely gonna get into this. Just a little bit more of that green sauce, and that is a perfect barbacoa taco. You cannot beat homemade flour tortillas with a good amount of fat in them. And that Crisco works really well. I definitely recommend giving that a try. Very occasionally, I'll cook something and I will feel like I've nailed it on every level in terms of the cook, the tenderness, the saltiness, the acidity, the sweetness, the textural contrast, all those things. And this was definitely one of them. Everything came together perfectly. It was not over seasoned. I didn't have to adjust it at all. Perfectly spicy. And yeah, that was a really good, easy, quick, delicious taco. So yeah, definitely give that one a go. I promise you, it will not let you down. You will not regret it. It is up there with one of my favorite recipes that I've cooked and eaten in a long time. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. It really helps me out. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks for another video.